Hello, this is Riverman Studios with a new tutorial on how to properly export from Blender to Unreal Engine. This is what we're looking at in Blender, and this is what it's going to look like in Unreal Engine. This is just a little model that I worked on a while back, but I never really finished it, but it'll work great for a test subject. It just has its I just rigged this arm a bit. Nothing really special, just the upper arm, lower arm, and the whole hand itself. And I made sure and added a root. So one thing to start with is to make sure and apply your modifiers like booleans, bevels, arrays, subdivision, surface modifiers, curves, just all that stuff, except armature modifiers. Do not apply those. You do not want to do that. And one problem that I used to have with exporting to Unreal Engine was my model would have this smoothing information and it would look like this in Blender, but when I shade it flat, this is what it would look like in Unreal Engine. It wouldn't export the smoothing information. But in this video, we'll show how to export that smoothing information properly. So, to start off with, make sure you select your object and then your armature. Make sure your armature is selected last, so it's the main part of selection. Then go to File, then Export. You might be able to do STL or GBL. I don't know if Unreal Engine does that or not, but I just do FBX. Then click selected objects. If you just have your object in its armature and that's all you have in the scene and that's what you're wanting to export, you don't have to do any selecting and you don't have to hit this check mark. I just am because I have some meshes here that I don't want to export. Then select Armature, Mesh, and Other. If you don't have a skeleton, bones, or armature, you don't need to select Armature. Unless you have animation, just uncheck Bake Animation. Then down here in Geometry, make sure and select Tangent Space. That is the smoothing information that will go into Unreal Engine. And then down here in the Armature tab, make sure and uncheck Leaf Bones. You don't want leaf bones unless there's a specific use for them. I don't really know what. They just clutter up your skeletal mesh. It kind of gets in the way and it's just unnecessary information. And you can, if you want, you can make an operator preset. You can just type what you want to title it, then you hit OK, and then it'll be in here for when you want to use it. Then make sure you've named your FBX the way you want it, or you can just leave it like that. Then you hit Export. Then we'll open up Unreal Engine. And I've already pre-made the materials, but when importing you can have it create materials for you. They don't really import correctly. They're pretty much just materials that are pre-named and have a basic color that is somewhat close to what you had it at. Make sure skeletal mesh is checked if you have armatures. Usually it'll always do it. It'll check it for you if the file has armatures. Usually it'll look like this, and you'll have to hit advanced, then go down to normal, import method, and select import normals and tangents. Tangents is what's going to make sure that the smoothing information is going to be correctly imported. And since I've already made my materials, I'm going to make sure it does not create a new material. If you're importing it for the first time, you might want to make sure create new materials is checked. Then click import. And also, so you know, when exporting from Blender, you can also select the primary and secondary axes for the bones, but that's not really necessary for this tutorial. Usually it always pops up this warning about no smoothing group information was found in this FBX scene, but as you'll see, the smoothing turns out just the same. Then you can open the skeleton. As you can see, the armatures have imported correctly. It all works, including the root bone. One thing that you'll want to look out for when creating your materials is that sometimes when exporting from Blender to Unreal Engine, when you export, this two-sided is unchecked in the material. And this is what it usually will look like when you import, because Unreal Engine doesn't really know which side is the outside. So then it just picks one, and that's what it goes with. And that's why you have this, where you can see inside from the outside, but you can't see outside from the inside. So that's why you need to go to your material and select two-sided, and it'll work. One thing also to do is that this is not usually what materials look like when you import them. This red plastic glow, I did not edit this because it was okay. This is what they look like. It's just a color. Sometimes it'll be off from what it looks like in Blender, and it won't have no metallic, specular, or roughness values. So you might want to add those to make sure your material works. And the glass properties do not import correctly either. Just for the sake of the tutorial, I'm just going to use the glass material from the statue that is in the starter content. If you want to make your own glass, you can either just make it yourself. There's YouTube tutorials on that, and you can also make an instance to keep using in your projects. And this is what the robot looks like. Now I can just drag them and drop them, and this is what we have. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the little notification icon so you won't miss the modeling of this robot. The video of this is coming out next week, so don't miss it. It's a half tutorial. It's mainly on a new technique that I found and why you should use it. And there's one step I gotta do on moving it to Unreal Engine that I'll do in a later video, and I want to make it playable. So don't miss the video on the creation of this robot. See you then.